NFT IQ here. Today I am delivering a highly unique, high value, very informative video about how NFT startups work in terms of the financial side. And so if you're evaluating one of these kind of new breeds of NFTs where they're using their mint money to launch a new business and you want to try and figure out how successful that business might be moving forward, this video is for you. If you're the kind of person that's just looking for these are the hot NFTs of the week, or some kind of like random plug video for a project that somebody else bought in on, then don't bother watching this channel because you're not really going to find that kind of content here. Here, we just do deep dives on specific NFTs to evaluate the fundamentals on whether I think they're a good buy or not in great detail. Or I do these kind of meta analysis, like high economic big brain thinking about the future of the industry and sort of the trends that are happening. So that being said, if you dig the content, hit the like button, subscribe button, bell notifications for time-sensitive updates. I'm only going to say that one more time at the end of the video. And last thing I have to mention before I dive into these spreadsheets is I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, and the NFT space is just very turbulent. Nobody really has any idea what's going to happen to your money, so you better behave from that perspective. So let's dive into these spreadsheets I put together. I've created a list of startup categories for the new kinds of startups that we're seeing in the NFT space right now. And I expect this list to grow. If the NFT boom continues, we're going to see new categories of projects. But right now, what we have are art projects, which are, profile photo projects, or maybe like photography, or, whatever it is. It's just a piece of art. They list it, they mint them, they're gone, the project's over, and that's it. The second kind of startup category is a launch pad, where your NFT gives you some kind of access to some inside information about future projects that are going to be launched. And so that's going to require some additional like personnel and overhead for like the project owners to continue to maintain those kinds of projects. So that's another category. The next one is software projects. There are a lot of software companies. Well, there are starting to be software companies that are launching their projects by launching NFTs that give them the initial revenue that they need to start building their project, which is super cool. And then the last one is the alpha group. And this is a lot of people have been doing this through Patreon already, where you find it like it's a YouTuber or some other social media influencer, and they expect people to pay a monthly fee, or in this case, to purchase an NFT, which gives you a pass to join their alpha group, where you're going to get some kind of like insight on Discord or whatever else. So you can see how I laid out the different considerations that we want to factor in when we're considering an investment into one of these projects. So for art projects, these are have a relatively low future return on investment for the company. Now, as a holder of the project, sure, it can grow on value on the marketplace. The floor price can keep going up. The rare prices can go up in value, etc. for an art project. But for the company that launched that project, they're not really going to be generating any future revenue from those NFTs. So maybe they're getting some minting, some transaction fees. Yes, they're going to be getting some, but it's probably just money that they're going to keep, and they're not going to invest in doing something in the future. So as a stakeholder holding one of these pieces, the only value that you're really considering is the price, the floor price going up, essentially. You're not really expecting them to deliver you something and to spend a bunch of money to build something cool in the future. So the good thing about that, though, is that their annual expenses are always going to be really low. And, you only have to consider that one thing, which is how valuable is the piece of art. And that's like that's one thing that you have to look at, which is nice. Now, launch pads are different in that they have a very high potential return on investment for the company that is launching them, because if they are pushing new NFT projects in the future and building a community for those before they launch and they're really able to facilitate future minting events that are successful, then they can kind of just like rinse and repeat and keep launching future projects and keep generating money through minting. So this is a very promising area of investment, in my opinion, because the future for the return on investment for you as the NFT holder, but also for the company that is managing these projects, is very high. And as far as the annual expenses, I rank them as medium because what I see is that they're going to have community managers. They're going to have some software engineering, a minimal amount for launching new NFTs. And they're going to have a lot of maybe like employees that are working on social media. So we'll dive into those details here in a second. But this is just the general category of expense. For software projects, obviously, the annual expenses become much higher because you have to hire an engineering team, and that team is probably continuously going to grow and expand if your product becomes more sophisticated and more useful to your customers. However, the future on return on investment is much higher because not only can you have those initial NFTs that you use to launch your software project to get that initial funding that you needed to build your alpha or your beta or your prototype or whatever, but you're also potentially going to be able to set up other kinds of license fees. So like a monthly subscription or annual subscriptions, as we see with like Nansen, right? So Nansen, they didn't launch with an NFT. They launched it using a more traditional startup approach in the software world, which is to use venture capital. But essentially what software companies are doing now is they're skipping the venture capital and they're going straight to selling an NFT for a subscription service. And then this is a way for them to raise money without having to mess around with like these super big fish Wall Street investors and these billionaires who kind of control the world. So this is really cool. And I hope we see more of these in the future. We're going to dive into the economics of that more in a minute. Last one category that I thought of was the alpha groups. And these alpha groups have the lowest, they have like a very low startup cost because it's essentially just a social media influencer who's launching an NFT and then giving you a subscription to like a Discord channel. So maybe they have to like hire a Discord moderator at some point after they've launched, or they have to do some technical work for the NFT. Maybe they're going to have to build a website and that kind of stuff. But really, I consider the annual expenses to be like medium, or like their startup cost to be low, and then their annual expenses also to be like low or medium, depending on how much value they try and deliver for their project. So the next thing to consider is like how much money are these companies working with? When the minting goes down, how much money are these companies actually going to have to work with? And how long is that going to last them, assuming they can't generate any further revenue? Because if you invest in a product, an NFT that is where the value of that NFT is contingent upon this team delivering something in the future, they only have a fixed budget to work with to deliver that, and then they have to find a way to start bringing more money in. So it's very important to understand how much money the company is making during minting in relation to how many employees and stuff you expect them to need in order to get to kind of the next phase of their startup. So if we look at some example NFTs that I've been tracking recently, then we can walk through this in detail. So this is going to take quite a while, but it's really important that you understand this. If you're really serious about understanding how to invest in these startups and evaluate, this is like where we really want to do our homework. So number one is the Tower, which was an NFT that launched on Solana about a week ago, maybe a little more now. And their mint price was 2 Solana. So these others are in Ethereum, but this one is actually in Solana. I took that into account over here in the spreadsheet. And they minted 10,000 NFTs, which means that they earned 20,000 Solana. And around that time, their Solana price was around $200. So I can estimate, there's no way for me to know for sure, but if they were to just cash out all their Solana that day, they would have $4 million USD to kind of work with to bring their team, to grow their team and to deliver the next phase of their project, which is very ambitious, by the way, for the Tower. And then last thing I want to mention is just like this estimate for taxes. Whenever you have revenue as a company, you have to pay taxes. It doesn't matter if you're working in the crypto world or not. It doesn't matter where you hold that money. like the government is going to find a way to get their taxes out of you eventually. So we do need to take that into consideration. Obviously, this 21% number is not accurate. This is just what I found on Google for a corporate tax rate for revenue currently in the United States. And so instantly 20%, 21% of that mint money is just needs to be considered gone and going to the government. So just be sure that you're taking the tax expenses into consideration when you're thinking about how much money these projects actually have to work with. Now, moving on from a software project to just a pure art project like Jungle Freaks, that one minted for 0.08 Ethereum. Actually, no, I think it was 0.07. So let me update that really quick. Let's see if my spreadsheet actually works. It does. So that means they earned 700 Ethereum. And the Ethereum price at that point in time was around 3,800 US dollars. That's not an exact number. That's just my estimate, which means they made about $2.6 million. And awesome for Jungle Freaks, because this was probably just about 2 or 3 people that put this together, maybe 4. And they're not really they don't have to deliver anything else to their customers. So they just get to just like cash this out and, you know, go buy new houses and new cars or whatever else they're going to do with their money, maybe invest in a future project. But totally awesome. They probably made close to $2 million is my estimate, and they're kind of in and out and done. So launching an art startup on it as an NFT, like totally awesome idea if you just want to make some money and you have the reputation to do so. Moving on to some of these alpha startups. There are 2 social media influencers who I follow. Their videos you've probably also seen if you've watched my channel. Shout out to these 2 projects. Crash Trading on YouTube specializes in cryptocurrency and more recently NFTs as well. He has recently announced the launch of his alpha Discord channel and the details on how he's doing that with an NFT startup. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then same thing, shout out to Kosher Boy on YouTube, the Plug Pass. Both these were just announced in like the last 2 or 3 days. So I wanted to put together an estimate of how much money are they going to be getting and how much money are they going to have to spend to keep their momentum in their business. Because if I'm going to buy one of these passes, like, yes, there's the value of what I'm going to get in this alpha Discord group or whatever they're giving me. But also, if I want to get out of it and I want to sell that NFT later, I need to know, like, are they actually going to be able to have a sustainable business model so that they can continue to deliver value on that NFT so the price of my NFT continues to grow. And so I put some estimates together here. You can see that I'm expecting them, Kosher, making about $1 million. And then he also has a annual renewal that if they can keep all of their NFTs sold on the marketplace, be bringing in about $645,000. I think that he's really shooting more for $500,000 per year for this, which personally I think is too low if he wants to have a sustainable team, but that's just my perspective on it. Maybe if he can maintain a small team and isn't expecting to make a ton of money off of this, then this number is fine. But he mentioned that he's considering adjusting this price based on the price of Ethereum and whatever else. So this could change. But the mint price we know, so he's shooting for about $1 million on the mint so that he has a good runway. And then Crash is much more exclusive, only 100 of these being minted, only 100 people in the Discord. And he's actually hand selecting all the people that are going to be able to buy one of these NFTs, from what I understand, or at least most of them, because he only wants serious investors in there to really raise the value of that community. And so, I mean, he's only going to be bringing in $200,000 roughly on this project, which, sure, that's a decent chunk of money for just starting a Discord. You might think that, but if he has to hire moderators and sustain that for like years at a time, he could start losing money on this project, within a couple of years from my perspective, unless he starts finding another way to generate revenue within this project, which he probably will. So this is just the spreadsheet I put together. Now, I apologize because I didn't have time to put together a NFT project with the startup type of the launch pad, but like the one I wanted to do, maybe we'll do this for another video, is looking at IMX Marketplace, looking at the launch pad called Moonshot Garage Project, which I've been tracking. So yeah, maybe we'll do Moonshot Garage projects so we can see how the economics kind of work for that kind of startup. But what I did do is for these startups that I did investigate so far, I did some quick estimates on very roughly how much I expect them to be spending on overhead each year. And just looking at employees and like a rough estimate of other overhead they might run into, this is what I came up with. So the tower, this is a software startup, remember, so they have a lot of overhead because I expect they need like at least 3 software engineers to make this project successful and 3 other employees, like a community manager, maybe a social media expert, and then like the CEO or whatever. And I just put really rough estimates for salaries. Of course, this could be a lot lower, a lot higher, depending on who they hire, where those people live, whether they're full-time or part-time, etc. But really, realistically, I think these numbers are decent for a rough estimate. And so I expect their annual expenses to be about $675,000. Sorry about that. What is going on here? And then the runway time. So if they took all of their mint money and just invested it, didn't keep any of it for themselves, and they just invested it into this overhead looking forward, I estimate they have 5 years, maybe probably closer to 3 or 4 years, where they can basically just shove money into this project and hope that it grows and they can find other ways to make revenue. That one in particular, because they have sort of this future potential for selling NFTs for like items in their rooms in the tower, I think they have a lot of potential for future revenue, just throwing that out there. But they have a lot of time to figure that out, which is really cool. To me, that makes this like a very strong investment, potentially. Jungle Freaks, this is awesome because they made all this money on the mint. I think I messed up copying and pasting that. They made good money on the mint. They probably aren't going to have any real employees unless they're trying to grow the project somehow and launch another NFT probably. And so they've got plenty of runway time. Basically, they just cash out. They made some good money. Congrats to them. And that's it. As far as Crash Trading's NFT goes, I was thinking about this one. I think that he's probably not going to need any software engineers unless he wants to start building a software project later down the road. I would not be surprised if he does that. Like Kosher's doing a Chrome plugin to kind of enhance when you're browsing your NFTs to give you some data that they think is useful. I could definitely see Crash getting into that space as well. For other employees, I think that he's going to need at least 1, maybe 2, because he's going to need someone to moderate the Discord potentially and managing social media, depending on how he wants to spend his time during the day. And so annual expenses I expect to be pretty low. So I think he has like a solid foundation for running this company in the red for like at least 2 years. And as far as the Kosh plug pass goes, this one is more intensive because I think he has at least 1 software engineering employee, potentially 2, if he really grows out that Chrome plugin that I was talking about. And so as far as other employees, if you watch his video, he lists off like a bunch of people that are doing a bunch of different things, which is really cool, but it does bring the expense up if these other people are being paid from the minting revenue and not just by like giving them one of the NFTs. So the runway time I estimated to be about 2 years, but this is all very flexible. So I hope that this gives you some perspective on what to think about with these projects. Realistically, these are very, this is an imperfect art, but when you see projects that have a lot of runway time based on how much revenue they got from their mint and they have high potential for future value, that's when you know that you found like a diamond. When you're looking at like that is potentially a future blue chip. When they have a long runway from their mint revenue and they have a high potential for generating future revenue, shout out to the Tower and some of these other software startups that are starting to launch in this space. I think that these are the most promising right now in terms of long-term buys. These alpha groups also I think are really good because they have a lower overhead and they're going to have a nice runway. Plus they have a lot of organic growth happening right now. So with that, NFT IQ, hope this was helpful. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Tell me about projects that you're watching in the comments that you'd like me to cover from this perspective, and we can go through this exercise. I think I'm going to do Moonshot Garage Project next. And bell notifications for time-sensitive updates. With that, I hope everybody enjoys continuing to trade their NFT projects.